Alright, so finally getting started on this fourth video here for my what was supposed to be Agents of Yesterday preparation series. Yeah, it all took too much time. Had stuff to do, job, work, and whatnot. So here I am now recording it, and honestly, it may be for the best, because the fourth video is going to be about the Agents of Yesterday total content package. It's basically a review of Agents of Yesterday and everything it's brought to the game. I'm probably gonna miss some things, but I have written down a lot of stuff that I need to cover, so hopefully I can keep a good flow and get this going right and good. Cause there's good in Agents of Yesterday and there's bad. Um, Mostly good, but at the same time, if you ask me, not enough good. Total content package wise, like I want more, is what I'm saying. So let's go over all the ways that I mean this. Um, yeah. So the first one I'll be starting with will be the lighting engine. Uh, this is something that affects everyone, and honestly, it's probably one of the most significant parts of the Agency Yesterday package because the lighting engine has changed a lot. It's probably the best visual update the game has gotten. You know, a lot of uncleanliness in the game, grossness, and dirty, blurred, smeared texture type stuff um, is we're seeing it in a new light, and it's good. Like, look how clean this ship is. Look how well rounded it is, and that's partly the triangles, according to Thomas, I think. But look, this probably has to be one of the most realistic looking, this and the TOS Connie Hall halls in the game. Um, it's partly because of how it was made, but it's partly because of how the lighting model has changed things. Um, yeah, the it's tough to really say how, but this looks like a massive object at distance. Um, Lighting engine is working a lot better with that sort of thing now, I think. Yeah, like and it's allowing for very interesting things to be happening. You know, in a few places that TOS model was, you know, maybe a bit innovative, other than just overall design structure and the way it looked. Like the way it was built too. I think not totally sure, but you know, very interesting. It's funny how when these spinning parts come back and you're forced to remember the pre-CGI version, how you look. It even brings a new light on the JJ Connie, or the Kelvin Connie as it is now. Because you see those big spinning grates in it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's even closer than I imagined to, the original. So that's a little bit nice. Um, it's a huge step in the right direction for the game's visuals. Lighting has struggled in a lot of ways. I've done a lot of comparisons and looked at several of my ships, and in low light areas I'm seeing more of my ship. You know, like you might not see the ship so crisp and clearly in this angle um, in the old engine. Uh, it's a step in the right direction, but there are problems with it too. Um, like like this thing right here, maybe we got too close to the original. maybe 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 that part looked weird on the model and like it was made out of styrofoam because of technological limitations. Um, or I don't know. They're funky little things. Very interesting, but yeah, it's and well, some ships have suffered from lights blurring out color. I think the Excelsior specifically on the long strips that you see on my Excelsior with Ray, you'll see the white part of the nacelles like blinding out all the blue, and most of the nacelle light has just basically become white. Um, and it's slightly angle dependent. Um, but yeah, yeah, I think I saw it a bit with the Akira too. You know, um, you know, giving all these lights, all this power, maybe it's had good and bad effects. I think consoles and light sources inside have suffered depending. Like information dependent um, things have almost become light sources themselves, possibly like screens, consoles, and like part of it's good. Like it looks better inside of the game than it does in screenshots. Like screenshots of console screens and whatnot made it look really bad. But in game, it's not quite that bad. Like maybe almost like these things are generating too much bloom, or they're being affected by too much bloom. I don't know if I'm using the correct graphical terminology here, but I'll try and throw it out as best I can. Um, yeah, like maybe light pollution would be a more everyday way of trying to say what I'm talking about. Um, and you probably noticed, or if you look closely, you'll notice that a lot of the actual readouts have changed. Like you'll see different button organizations on the control screens and maybe different stuff on the screens. I'm not totally sure about like pictures on screens and whatnot, but yeah, I think it's possible. But Yeah, and the difference between the button, like on ESD, this is my big example. On ESD, all the button readouts for your controls, your keyboard, whatnot, they've become way more uniform. And I think before there was more variety in how these, you know, uh, light hologram keyboards were laid out. And that was cool because, how do I say this? Oh, geez, it's on the tip of my tongue, this word. Yeah, variety. Variety is a spice of life. A spice of life. You want the more variety you had in that stuff, I think the cooler it would have been. We just saw all sorts of weird stuff on computer screens in Star Trek. Yeah, the ugly truth is that probably Star Trek stuff is not the most efficient way to do things with people. We do all interact with computers on an everyday basis. There are things that you need and things that enhance certain types of tasks. Like, point and click reticle type stuff will help you with visual oriented tasks. And because we're living organisms. And and the other reason that variety is so great is because in Starfleet and these, sci-fi factions, you would have different species that had different physical and mental and visual priorities for, doing these sorts of things. So I think there's, reason enough to have the, variety that we had or more. Um, like if your artists have the time, cryptic, let them, you know. But there are all sorts of things that could done to help this game. So, um, not the biggest deal. Overall, the lighting engine I think is it. No, it's probably even the best part of Agency yesterday. Like the ships are most ships look better in this new engine, even though they don't have these super detailed Aztec paneling paint jobs. Uh, they they still look better, and it's because the lighting update was a super logical update to make to the game. Great decision, um, and I can't wait to see it refined. Um, Now I should probably move on to the next part. Let me just look at this little script thing. Okay, so yeah, this one's gonna be a biggie. Uh, Ships, I would say, made up a large portion of what Agents of Yesterday really was. Um, we got a lot of ships. Um, and to be honest, I'm not really into most of them. Mm, but there's good parts of them. There's bad parts. I don't. Overall, Agency Yesterday is a huge boon to TOS fans because it makes everything that we'd want at the you know that we like. There's a guy on the forums who the Daedalus is his favorite ship. Love that guy. Barely didn't even know. Like I think I might have seen him say it once before, but hearing that stuff, it's great. Um, that's good, and it's good news for everyone who wants to see their ship, whatever ship it may be, at the end game. Um, Now that said, there's also an awkward element to it. You know, people shouldn't be forced into TOS, and it's a very old aesthetic, the oldest for Star Trek. It's very simple. You can't at all blame people for not liking it. And thankfully for that, there's other ships that don't have the TOS aesthetic. Now, on the flip side of that change coin is a lot of those ships have an Enterprise, um, a very unique blink of an eye and you'll miss it Enterprise design aesthetic. And these are the future ships. And I think those are also hideous. In fact, I think those might be the most hideous things in the whole game. Now, part of that is the lighting choices they made on some of those ships, like Federation ships with purple and yellow glows, are very gross looking. I know yellow happened for a moment in canon, but mostly let's just like try to stay away from that if if you're feeling me on that taste thing. I don't see a whole lot of love for the Enterprise J on the internet. It does exist in packets. It's there, but you know, uh, hopefully, on the most part, we can choose to walk away from what we've done right out the gate visually with all these ships. But there are some standouts and there are some good ones, and I'm in one of them right now. This is probably hilariously my favorite Agents of Yesterday ship. I really like this one. It's the utility cruiser. It's a starter ship. Um, so there are some really important things about it that make it great. Um, Compared to the other Agents of Yesterday TOS ships, the biggest one is it doesn't have a deflector tube in the middle of the saucer. The saucer is a saucer. We're not forcefully combining, we're not combining ship elements to, you know, a total detriment to other ship elements. Like, you know, the parts of these ships, and especially in their TOS era, were separated for reasons. Um, and the minimalistic approach to combining them on the utility cruiser is absolutely the most successful in the whole batch. Basically, we only see the main hull right here, and we'll back up to the bridge, which almost even looks a little bit original in this area. Great. I mean, yeah. And then we see the rest of, yeah. It's only it's very similarly to how it would be done with a real model. Um, the main part of the hull was only put over the saucer where you could fit it using the actual original model. Now this area is very original. Um, don't care for the backwards deflector part, but who cares? It's TOS. You know, the covering it in little pointy bits in the right places is totally fine, and it looks cool. It looks cool, but I just it's funky. I hope that doesn't become a trend. Like this is a very unique situation in which that worked. Um, but yeah, just it's a compact cruiser, which is great. Um, Now the other ones you'll see all sorts of weird stuff happening to TOS ships, like phaser emitters being put on the front of the saucer, giving it a big old hole in the middle and some big deflector nose. And which is a relic of the original Star Trek Online ship design ethic ethos, which I think is hurting the game. But it's that's personal. I'll admit that. Um, but I'll try and make my case at the same time. You know, who needs four nacelles? Um, yeah, so that's pretty much all I can really say about this ship, except for one thing, but I'll mention that thing right there later. So, what other ships look good for the TOS part? The guys that I'm most interested in, that I would be most interested in trying. The battle cruiser looks fairly good. It doesn't have the deflector nose. Unfortunately, it's not all that attractive to me. Um, I think it's like they took all the worst parts of the Akira model in game and turned it into a TOS ship. Um, and yeah, it doesn't work to me. Like if we were gonna do a TOS Akira, the best way to do that probably would have been making a TOS Miranda. Um, but then then things might get weird. So it's and it cloaks, I guess. It's it's silly, but yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not terrible that it cloaks, um, but you know, maybe that's for another video. The next one probably. Yeah, the battle cruiser. I'm just not like really. If somehow it could be donated, I would experiment with it. I'd have some fun with it, but I can't see it being a ship for any of my mains or alts, sadly. Um, and that brings me to something I should have said at the beginning of talking about the ships from Agents of Yesterday. The new temporal ship mechanic, that's the new tier 6, or, well, actually, it's mixed tier this time, which is very interesting. But in the new ship exotic, specialization, it's the temporal agent mechanic thing. and that culminates you in blasting the enemy with a temporal beam of some sort, doing a stack of some things. And I think that mechanic is terrible. Um, I I really dislike game mechanics that within itself like make you sacrifice. I think in Magic the Gathering, um, they very aptly summed up that type of mechanic by giving it all to the color black. The color black in Magic the Gathering is like death and destruction, decrepit necro business, evilness. The Nazgul would be a good, they would be a black card in Magic the Gathering. And it was when one of the times I played Magic the Gathering, the black cards were the ones that had like sacrifice some HP to do some damage, or sacrifice some, uh, who knows, to do some whatever, or to draw a card or something like that. And yeah, yeah, just it's not like, why would I'm if I ever do end up using a ship with this temporal mechanic going on with it, I will have a hard time justifying even turning it on, because my builds aren't zeroed in to the point where I feel like I can sacrifice much. Um, yeah, and the offensive bonus doesn't even give you anything for attack power. It basically just helps you, how do I say this? Man, this TOS guy in the background. um, darn it. Okay, oh jeez. Yeah, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Gosh darn it. Let me just look at the script thing again. Yeah, I was somewhere on this temporal oh yeah, the doesn't even give the offensive bonus. Yeah, so the offensive one that's supposed to boost your offensive abilities in some sort of temporal way doesn't give you attack power of any sort. It just gives you a speed and turning boost, which will improve your ability to put heat on your target. But ultimately, that's not truly offensive, because speed and maneuverability can also be used to get yourself out of battle, to control, element, as well as it is offensive, like high dexterity, high defense sort of thing. Um, in Spirit, and that does find its way into the game too, I think. But in Spirit, most importantly. Uh, so like but most players have all the speed they need. And there are all sorts of ways to get that speed and turn that you need. Um, it's just super unimpressive. Uh, I hope when the Katinga hits tier 6 that it gets command, and any other ships I'll definitely be using, because inspiration so far looks better. Like, I want to combine inspiration abilities with cruiser commands, with all the combinations possible, like the Kelvin Connie. That sounds great. That sounds like a really solid combo. Um, Man, I think I could make a wicked healer or tank with Kelvin Connie, but it doesn't quite have the look for me. None of the Kelvin ships really do. But I should talk about their looks now that I'm pretty much there. Yeah, Kelvin Connie, I think it's pretty much the ugliest Enterprise, even worse than the NX. It's not uglier than the thing that just spawned in above me, though. That's for sure. Wow. Uh, uh, oh God. Yeah. Yeah. So the Kelvin Universe ships, how do they look? How do they play? Well, they're lockbox ships, so they play great, pretty much. From everything I've been able to read and observe. Yeah, I don't hate the Kelvin universe. You know, I think it's a lot better than most people give it credit for, but aesthetically, the ships I think mostly look bad. The Klingon cruiser from the Kelvin timeline, it looks kind of cool, looks fairly cool. Um, but you know, not as good as that Katinga. Um, yeah, the Romulan carrier that was released is almost infinitely interesting. There's Mogai in it, there's Daedalus in it, and it's got a huge sphere in the center, which is really un-Romulan, but kinda, well, not maybe un-Romulan, but it's very strange and exotic and not something we've really seen before from them. So it's very interesting. But I'm not really interested in that look quite as it is. The backwards, you know, little fin tail on it was almost saved the design, but ultimately I think it's wonky. I'm pretty sure it's a comic book design. So, you know, the exotic elements of it, like the lights and on the sphere, are really interesting. But not for me. Not for me. You know, I did consider it for Lucius, though, my main Romulan engineer. Um, I gave it that thought, but it just didn't get me what I needed, sadly. The D4, I think it is, the new Klingon pilot ship, it's not bad looking. I just don't really want to use it for anything, and I think it's too small. And pilot ships almost like upset me, how absurd they are. um, But you know, apparently it looks really cool in flight, and that's admirable. You know, really admirable from the design team, the modelers and whatnot, the animators. Yeah, the multi-faction sea store ships for Agents of Yesterday are they look a lot like the Wells time ship, but you know, with more exotic features. Some of them looking more like maybe bird-like or something. You know, to try and satisfy those alternate faction characters, which is nice. Not really interested in any of those though. They're too generic for me. You know, when I come to a Star Trek game, I come to it for a specific thing. So, yeah, sadly passing up on just about everything that happened with ships. You know, there are probably some good traits I need, but right now the trait I'm most excited for is the one that came with the the new recruit system. That's gonna be a really nice boost for my healers. Um, so that's good. That's good stuff. Um, Maybe I should talk about. I've just realized that the temporal recruit rewards are not something I have something to be covered in my script. So let me just add this in here somewhere. Where would this best go? Where would this go? You know, near the end. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I almost had it in there. Yeah. Okay. Oh well. Let's clarify. Okay. So great, now that's in there. And now I should check where else I'm gonna go because I think I've covered all the ships that were released. I've talked about what it could mean for the future. Okay, yeah, there's what I haven't done. What I haven't talked about, the most exciting part of the expansion ship stuff almost, were the new alternate faction ships for the Klingons and the Romulans. These new TOS ships for both those guys. I'll start off with the bad. The Klingon ones look ugly as hell. They're just absolutely atrocious, man. There's no, they're. I'm sorry to whoever modeled them. You just don't even those on those that resume, if you ask me. Um, like uh, like simplicity in the Enterprise era. You know, I feel like that combined into one of those new original Klingon ships we saw, and I think it was a disaster. I think it was a car crash. And then into the big ship, I think it's called the D9. I think that's a neck bar skin with uh, some very simple blocks placed over it. Um, I'm really sorry to whoever modeled those, but there was elegance in the simplicity of Matt Jeffries, and it's totally lacking in those designs. Sorry, guys. Um, I do love the Katinga the most for Klingons, but these things don't even measure up to the D7. Not that they're too different, but they don't. um, Klingons, I think, have always been the hardest to design ships for in Star Trek for the devs, for probably what is a huge number of reasons. But just to try and sum up a few, over-reliance on Enterprise as inspiration. The Enterprise Romulan bird of prey was a good look. That's good inspiration for a modern Romulan ship. But the Enterprise Klingon ships were designed to look old. They were designed to look awkward. Covered in cables, holes in the nacelles, and holes in the nacelles can look really cool and modern, but the cables, the tubes, those are really tough to make look modern. We all saw the Borcha happen, we all saw the neck bar happen, and if those things are part of a program for C-store releases, that's, well, that's, that's my prediction as to how well they're going to sell. Sorry, guys. Um, on the other hand, that new Romulan ship, the basically TOS Daedalus, is incredible. It is, oh, um, great. Um, this Embracing the negative space on Romulan ships is going to be so rewarding for the dev team, the designers. Yeah, that TOS Romulan Warbird that's new is really good. I think maybe if they were going to try and make it the TOS Daedalus, I think maybe it could have been bigger. But great looking ship. Um, yeah, and they opted out of the head, nose, face sort of thing that you got on later warbirds for the saucer, more saucer-like thing you saw in TOS. And the way they do it, having it come off of the wing frame ahead of both levels of the arrangement of the ship was pretty much exactly how that needed to be done. Um, so that wins the best new ship award. Yeah, I was so pumped when I saw a thread pop up about that. I'm really glad other people noticed. Um, but yeah, that's ships. It's mostly the potential that we see in what's happened. That's great about this. But we'll see. We'll see. Um, okay, back to this. And you know what? Let's just close that. I don't need the internet right now. So yeah, it's time to get into the real meat and potatoes of this video. What makes a faction, and if the new TOS faction qualifies, or if it's a recruit system, something in between, and what can be done. As a huge TWOK TOS fan, uh, I really want to send out the rallying cry for content with this stuff. Um, but let's talk about and to be honest, this has already been discussed out there before even the release. But you know, now that it's all here in front of us, confirmed, uh, you know, I'll try to talk about how it's measured up. And to start with, I'll start with the quote from Al Rivera. I think it was who said it. That it would be at least as much of a faction as the Romulans were. And that's, I understand that that could be a variable statement, but, um, and I'm not gonna try and say they're building up things or lying, they did drop the word, temporal recruit, all that, all those times. Uh, it's, so, yeah, okay, and really, it's not even important that the Romulans will be compared in this faction. I'll just compare the TOS faction to all the factions in the game, and hopefully see what we got. Um, and the first part in talking about this will be, oh geez, okay, yeah, the mission count. So the mission count is the one that's raised the biggest amount of fuss, I think, from the fan base. There are 6 TOS specific missions. Maybe like a briefing or two added in there as a mission. Um, it's basically your first 10 levels a glorified tutorial, and it's enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. Um, but the Romulans got a lot more than that. For their original stuff. The Klingons have more than that. Tough to say. They've clawed their way out of that place, though. So the Klingons had PvP and, Klingon-style original content to make them original. And then I think they seeped into episodic seasonal content with everyone else. Recognize who the big baddies were. Um, so, is there anything unique about the TOS faction to compensate for the lack of missions in comparison to what other factions are at now? Tough to say. Well, we can talk about what the TOS faction does try to successfully deliver on, or does mostly successfully deliver on, and that's the TOS aesthetic for your characters. The new UI feels very TOS. Got those TOS sounds. It's great. Um, the you know, let's see if we can get the old sector map. Let's see if the sector map looks like it did in the tutorial sector space. Um, no, it does not. That's a real shame. Yeah, you can't have everything, but it'd be really cool to see this in TOS style. That, and it'd be one of the, technical types of information display that we did, I think, actually genuinely see in TOS. We saw borders, I think, in, maps of border space in the Balance of Terror. So, and I really like what they did with sector space in the tutorial, so that'd be great to have out there. But yeah, the other big part of the TOS character and identity that has made it into the game is the animations um, in the utility department. You have the TOS tools, you have the TOS tricorder, TOS communicator, um, and you use the TOS phaser for, carving open doors and stuff. Uh, or do you? Well, it's not perfect, and implementing new animations for a new faction never went smoothly with Cryptic. So hey, well, it's happening. Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully this is, hopefully part of the rallying cries for, to, give the TOS characters all their goodies. Maybe we could even get the TOS phasers and tools as options for our builds and stuff. That'd be great. But hey, Romulans have it. Why not? Uh, yeah, and the new scanning animation for TOS characters, both the tricorder on ground, there's a VFX effect. Well, that's the wrong way to say it. Probably for inside of a video game. How do I say it in video game graphics talk? Like little sparkly effects. I forget what they're called. But yeah. Uh, the the animated scanning visual effect. I just did it. There we go. Is very, very cool for the TOS characters, both on the ground and in space. And part of and it just looks good. But it's great even because it maintained the TOS design ethos. Uh, well, as we see it, in retrospect, minimalist, um, glorified simplicity. Um, you know, like there is not a lot of different red in that, but there is that gradual fade, and it's very smooth, and there's the hard edges on the scan lines. And you'll see gradual difference on the colors, tones, hues of the other scan animations as well. You know, and that's it's great. Um, that's what personally for me solidly made my planned TOS characters mains. Basically, unless another certain specific little mini faction comes out, my TOS characters are about to become my Federation, well, one of my Federation mains at least, and they will be getting all sorts of play. Um, because it looks good. It's good stuff, and I hope we see more. Um, and there's a lot I want to add to this statement about the animations, but it might not be proper to say it till later in the video. Um, yeah, okay, so we're almost there. We're almost getting to the end talks about the expansion, but, one little thing that I'd like to mention is the TOS uniform. The base TOS uniform is still not included in either of the TOS bundles, but on the bright side, our characters from the TOS faction get these uniforms for free, which is great. Maybe not. Maybe I just have to stay away from the tailor. Not totally sure, but I mean, they wouldn't do that, right? And all the new badges on the emblems are really cool. That's great. Um, yeah, not much I can say about that. I'd hope that the TOS uniform becomes part of a bundle, or maybe if we've made a TOS character, maybe the basic TOS uniform can become one of the rewards for this temporal recruit program. Just little things, but this is an overall content review. So okay, there were also three, maybe 3.5 missions added to the game for all factions. These were the general time traveling stuff, the more enterprise themed part of the expansion that affected everyone. Everyone was at the Battle of Procyon 5, or however you say that, apparently. And oh, I need to talk about the two queued missions too. Okay, I'll do that right after this. Yeah, the three, maybe 3.5 enterprise missions were good. They had TOS stuff in them too, I think. They had the JJ stuff in them, the Kelvin universe. It wasn't bad. None of it was handled, really bad, I think. The interiors of the Kelvin Universe ships are nice. They're neato. Not, I wouldn't use them, but, they're neato. Um, the, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about that I can say about them without spoiling stuff. One little gripe I'll mention is it's very peculiar that they chose to make Garrett the captaining officer of the Yorktown. The Yorktown is widely rumored to be the ship that became the Enterprise A. Um, in fact, Gene Roddenberry apparently supported that idea himself. Um, like, this might have been one of the ships that got hit by the whale probe. Um, so maybe it was given to another captain. Maybe the Captain Garrett was somehow not on screen. It's kind of a tough one, and to be honest, Agency Yesterday does really cling to parts of the Star Trek universe maybe a little too hard. Like, it almost feels like we're just on a roller coaster ride of places the original Enterprise had already been, and people that the original Enterprise had already fought. And it's awesome fighting next to the Enterprise, and it's really not bad at all feeling like I'm helping them. But if you want me to feel like like I was a TOS guy living in the TOS universe, um, these characters needed to have a life of their own inside this universe, and when it's just a highlights reel, it doesn't really feel like that. It's fun, it's nice, I want more, but unfortunately, it doesn't deliver um, what I think would be the desired effect. Um, I'm probably missing all sorts of stuff now. There's yeah, okay, really getting close to the end of the content review aspect. And then, like most of my videos, I'll try to, you know, suppose fixes and updates that would, make these situations better. Um, but the last problem with TOS is I almost didn't notice it myself, but it practically flared up from the community, and in the end, I've come to support it. Is the limited number of species you get in the TOS faction. Um, I think I might have made my TOS character an alien that looked like a human, if I could. Uh, just for gameplay purposes, maybe for some extra traits. Um, yeah, it's tough to really say. Yeah, and Caitians apparently were like in Starfleet just a year or two after when we're in Starfleet and when we're starting this faction. Uh, you know, but uh, like of course, Caitians will almost assuredly be a paid option. Now, how they approach that is not something I really care about. Um, but hopefully, they. It's so awkward even just talking about that stuff. Is uh, yeah, definitely don't plan on having any Caitians. But for the Cation players, yeah, you should, maybe they could sell some TOS Cations. Maybe they could sell some, you know, what was it? Search for Spock Cations. Uh, yeah, overall, what I'm trying to say is the species count for this period in Star Trek is a little lacking. We saw all sorts of weird stuff in that show. You know, I think we could get more in there and have it be reasonable. Mm, yeah, and so that's pretty much the end of the content review for the expansion. And now I'll be getting into fixed, proposition type stuff. And yeah, basically, I have only one other thing I'd like to say about, the amount of content the TOS faction has received, but it's going to have to wait just a minute because it'll be said at the end or after I bring up what I, well, the big question that Agency yesterday has made for me. Basically, are we going to get undiscovered country Rathacon faction or recruit? It seems almost like an eventual assured thing. Like eventually, I feel like I could bet on it happening. But with TOS having just happened, it's probably at a very far part of that list a ways from Stowe in time. Like, who knows how long it's going to take for that to happen. Now, also, the other thing is, if it does happen, Des would probably have at least considered that releasing it right after this one would be very appropriate and a way of building on hype and levels. But this is part of the overall ugliness of Agency yesterday. Like, I love TOS. You know, uh, this stuff has got me thinking and, playing hard. Um, but, like, what about all the people who don't like TOS really that much? It sucks for them that they're going to have to deal with so much of it um, with these characters. Well, maybe not so much of it, but if if the faction grows and becomes more of a real faction, it could be that much. This could be a more real and serious statement, and for other factions that come down the road, it's a consideration too. If they're timing based, time period based. Like, I think the Enterprise C era would be another good era to go through. Um, but, anyways, yeah, like, that's just, it's really awkward to think about. But it's the Rathacon Undiscovered Country faction element is so important because how are we, the fans, supposed to draw the difference between the two eras with regards to this game um, and its potential future? Like, there are those of us who TOS was the absolute favorite, and there are those of us who have the Rathacon Undiscovered Country eras as our favorite. Um, and aesthetically, I'm more of a TWOK Undiscovered Country guy. So I'm sitting here wondering, like, how much of my mains these mains are going to become. Like, these animations are gonna look nice and better coming off of, the Rathcon style ships I'd fly. Um, but what, are they just gonna get deleted in the end? Um, and right now, I'm almost practically sure that my main character, my first character I ever made in this game, is now gonna be deleted or left behind. This is Mirror Raijin. Raijin was my first. This will probably take over because of the rewards and the animations. And for me, the animations, they make that, morally okay. But for other people, just for the rewards and the investment that it'll take to get those, it's really rough. Um, uh, yeah, like, so, um, the system with recruits, I think, has really, well, it's it's given good and bad because with it, modern characters will be able to use these old ships. But which is important. But it's these types of forced choices, I think, and false choices, more importantly, I think have become really common in the game. Yeah, and so the way Cryptic can deal with this is just be honest. Just come out and say if they're going to do, have a high level person who we can, hold, you know, whose words we can hold responsible for the game's design and like where it's going to go, like, and trust that, like, seriously, like we and have them specify, make sure this is a promise or not, or just, be open and say whether or not it's coming, say whether or not it's going to be the aesthetic is going to be added to the TOS faction in an update. Um, and that's important because if the other aesthetics are going to be introduced to the TOS faction and recruit system, um, then the people who want to use those aesthetics and function stuff need to know about so that they can make those characters right now while the temporal recruit system is going on. Like it would be, if this is it for us, let us know how deep we need to invest. Like, how hard do we need to go into this? Yeah, for the TOS purists as well. Um, Yeah, that's it for that particular angle. I'm getting close to the suggestions and starting to touch on suggestions for how to go from here. Um, yeah, I've basically said it all just previously a second ago, but the if you ask me the best way to solidify the TOS characters as a faction, um, deliver is to give TOS players their own ESD. Um, give TOS fans the little clubhouse that their faction should, imply. The Romulans have their own clubhouse, the Klingons have their own clubhouse, the Feds have their own clubhouse. Give the TOS guys their own ESD. And it'll be ugly because you'll need to give them access to this ESD too. And you'll probably want to give them access to the modern Starfleet Academy. Um, but yeah, that's I think that's really the key to making the TOS faction recruit system happen work and really be a great addition to the game, and let this be an expansion and not just maybe a glorified season. Um, Yeah, and I do have hope. They have, as I mentioned earlier, they added those missions so slowly to the Klingons. Some of them were repeats, recycles, but we can replace those too. Um, and how do we justify giving the TOS faction a starbase? Well, we combine it with updates to the Klingon and Romulan faction homeworlds. Romulus has some things it needs, like a security officer. Maybe they could bring the flotilla to Romulus after a certain level or something. Um, y- you know, uh, a quality of life pass could definitely happen there. Uh, Kronos has pretty much everything you need, but maybe some bugs. Maybe maybe they could I mean, I would love it if they redid Kronos. Particularly the main hall for the Chancellor of the Empire, I think is really disappointing. You know, he's like right next to a hospital and operational center, which kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like maybe, um, yeah, I think it could use an update. I'm not really super feeling like it needs one, but you know, that would be a good one for the devs to discuss amongst themselves if it did happen. So, you know, maybe like devote a half season, like a .5 season, to giving these factions some updates, some love. Um, yeah. So I think there's just one more thing I need to say before I wrap this up. Yeah, the other thing that can be done to pretty much make all of this better and make it really great, um, and really energize like just everyone will be to the ability to import your old characters into new factions or recruit systems. And there would obviously need to be limits in how this was done. For example, the biggest one right off the bat would be you're trying to start everyone over, okay, whatever. Have importing a character into a new faction or recruit system, have that bring the character to level 0, level 1, but maybe let them keep everything that they can, like all their gear, their traits, their accomplishments that would still be obtainable within this new faction. And the level as to how that is interchangeable will, of course, be debatable. Um, but you know, when you're like an example I'll talk about, they're probably at some point going to make a Cardassian slash Dominion faction, and this one will probably be more Romulan like when it happens. They'll probably, hopefully, they'd get Garrick to do the leader's voice. But hopefully he's not a governmental leader, and he's helping the military or some spy agency. He'd probably Garrick would probably try to use himself best for a new government if he supported it. Probably try to be a spy. Um, but that apparently I could be totally wrong. The soft canon for Garrick is apparently really well thought out and assisted by the actor himself. But yeah, so let's say a Cardassian Dominion faction happens. What about all the people who have put Cardassian or Dominion factions on their existing characters and been like, this is my Dominion guy. I sure wish I could play a Dominion character. Um, what about what happens to all that time and all that investment? So let's import them into the new factions. Um, you know, just hit that recon button, retcon button. um, I think that worked really well. Maybe have a limit to how many times you can do it. Well, no, probably not. Well, okay, have a limit to how many times you can do it to a single character. Like maybe if you change a character's faction, maybe we should be able to make that fairly permanent in some way. Maybe only if there are further in the future offered another faction, should they get another chance to reset. And if they reset, they would, if they went from recruit program to recruit program, you could do something like get rid of their rewards for the first recruit program, or maybe not get rid of them per se, but remove their access to them. Um, that's stern, now that I think about it. But, hey, if the whole thing is you want to make sure people were there at that time, as messed up as I personally think that is, I'm going to try and help Cryptic to find a way to make it work, because that's basically the only hope, if you ask me. Yeah, Yeah, so this is a really exciting new direction for the game. But there are so many implications for how things could go, how things will work, you know. Maybe for the big things, maybe it's time for the devs to be more, say more. Like let's definitely get a statement from a really high up dev um, on whether or not uh, some factions will be happening. Um, yeah. Um, Thanks for watching. Um, I've probably missed some things, forgotten to talk about some things. Maybe I can edit them in or just put them in the description. I'll just look at the script one more time to see if I can get anything I missed. Yeah, I got that stuff. Yep. Um, yeah, okay, so I guess I didn't quite say integrating the Rathacon Undiscovered Country stuff into the TOS faction. How could that happen? That would be really difficult, especially with all my suggestions within the video that I just mentioned. Um, you would maybe how it could be done, I think, is like the Romulan faction was done. Maybe at level 10 you get like a little splitting path option, like stay in the TOS timeline for some more story, or you know, you get your ship refit and you go into the TWOK um, undiscovered country era. Um, and for the home base thing, that would be really awkward. But thankfully, there are some shared assets between ESDs. But the interior for a TMP TWOK TUK ESD would be a monumental task. Because we have seen a nice little bit of the inside of those. Um, if they ever do get those environments into the game, all I'll say is, wow, kudos to the team, great job. And you guys, if you do try it, you don't even have to get the schematics right. All you have to do is just make sure the stuff that was in the camera shots that we saw in the movies was put into the game. All the in between is up to you guys. You know, that's uh, uh, that's the beauty of the artistic effort right there. You can have some fun with the in between if you want, and that's probably how you could get all the functionality of a social zone into um, the TMP TWOK ESD if it was ever made. Um, yeah, integrating. Yeah, so one last thing for maybe combining in the spirit of combining these mini factions. Um, Perhaps it's time to make Space Barbie explode. Maybe it's time for your tricorder and phaser welding animations to become customizable. And, okay, well then what's the worth of the TOS recruit? Okay, maybe the TOS recruit unlocks these animations for your other characters. Um, yeah, there's so much good that could happen to this game, and I'm hopeful. But for now, I'm still flying those TNG ships mostly. But eventually, Mirror Raijin probably will be my main Raijin. I might even just change his name to Raijin and make old Raijin Mirror Raijin. Who knows? Um, but thanks for watching. Let's rally for more TOS and TMP TWOK stuff. Yeah.